it's a good point to bring up the financing aspect because probably about 80% of all sales in the U.S. are financed or leased. So it's a big driver of auto sales. But I think we're also seeing just a fundamental peak of the market. That consumers are not buying at the pace that they used to. So after 8 years of expansion since the financial crisis, and it's been a wonderful expansion from under 10 million units in 2008, 2009 to around 17 million units per year. So I think the consumer is probably a bit tired at this point in terms of autos.
Are we at a risk, at risk, I should say, of an implosion of some kind in the subprime space when it comes to bank loans? I mean, is this a serious concern in the industry?
So what normally happens in cases where the auto market peaks, and we've certainly reached the peak here, is that as automakers try to grab for more sales to try to not make it a peak, what happens normally is that subprime is an area that they get more aggressive. So that is certainly a risk that the subprime area, trying to make vehicles affordable to the consumers who have the worst credit, is an area that of severe risk, I think, at this period.
Okay, so what happens from here, I guess, is really the key question, especially if you're invested in some of these stocks. Is there a decline from the peak, or is it just steady as we go?
That's a good question. The question in my mind is if we'll see a plateau this year, or if these declines we've seen continue through the rest of the year and, in fact, accelerate. But looking at the data and talking to automakers and dealers, my sense is that the conditions have not deteriorated to the extent that we'll see more severe declines. So while first quarter GDP growth was less than 1%, I think we should see improvements here as we go forward. And the next Fed policy meeting is one to watch carefully. They could slow down the pace of their interest rate increases for the remainder of the year, which would bode well for the automakers.
Okay, so James, really briefly, as we're just about out of time, who's best placed right now in the auto space?
Well, GM and Ford have strong truck mixes, and as we all know, it's the trucks that they make the most money on, and they've seen or they've demonstrated pretty good expense discipline. So those two names, I think, I'm quite positive on.